It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Won't you be mine? Could you be mine? Please, won't you be my neighbor? What up? This is Rama Screen covering movies, TV, and entertainment, and here's my review of Won't You Be My Neighbor? Let's rock this. How do you make a documentary about an inherently good man? By contrasting that with the world surrounding him that's inherently not as good. So that is the portrait of Fred Rogers in Morgan Neville's Won't You Be My Neighbor? And if this documentary doesn't bring you to tears, it will definitely warm your heart. It'll make you realize that if more people behave and view life and treat one another the way the late great Fred Rogers did, the world probably would not be quite entertaining or interesting, but it would certainly be a much more peaceful place. Won't You Be My Neighbor is an intimate look at America's favorite neighbor, Mr. Fred Rogers, who we all think we know since many of us grew up watching him greet us as he enters the door and puts on his sweater. But this documentary goes deeper in a moving way that takes us behind the scenes of the land of the make-believe and the heart of the creative genius who inspired children with his compassion and limitless imagination. First of all, let me just say that I'm a big fan of documentarian Morgan Neville's previous works, including 20 Feet to Stardom, Johnny Cash's America, Best of Enemies, Buckley vs. Vidal. It seems that whenever Morgan Neville tackles a real-life public figure as his subject matter, he goes right to the heart of what makes that person noteworthy or why he or she is being talked about, and how that can apply to our time. So it's more than just a collection of archival footage. As opposed to other documentarians like Morgan Spurlock, for example, who often takes the route of what can be considered sensational or daring in order to get his point across. So Morgan Neville takes his usual working method for this latest one, that is a biographical, detailed, insightful, and an inspiring look at one of the most revered individuals in television history. Won't You Be My Neighbor covers quite plenty, actually, from birth to death, from the rise of his show to the end of its run. If you didn't know much about Fred Rogers the person before, then you're gonna get to know him a little bit better because of this. And if you thought you knew about Fred Rogers the person, this docu will make you be even more fascinated with the legacy that he left behind. This is a well-structured docu that gives you segment by segment the progression of Fred Rogers. Some of them are more memorable than others because of what I implied earlier. Fred Rogers' worldview came at a time when America was at its most tumultuous. You know, with the Vietnam War, the civil rights conflicts, and the assassinations of some of our nation's finest leaders. I, for one, am quite surprised that Fred Rogers did not shield his children audiences from those. As a matter of fact, he found a way of addressing those issues for the children. Oh man, it's impressive how he doesn't talk down to them. He meets them at their level. He doesn't yell at them. A lot of us would have short fuse when it comes to dealing with kids, but not Fred Rogers. I know, maybe the idea of using hand puppets to explain the evils of racism and terrorist attacks might seem silly to many of us. I mean, who can take hand puppets seriously, right? Turns out children do. And another thing that's fascinating is that this is not one of those where the subject matter is wrestling with his personal demons. No, not at all. If anything, Fred Rogers' wrestle is with outside opinions and pop culture that insist that their way is the only right way to communicate with children. Fred also has to wrestle with evolving his stance on the LGBTQ. He also has to essentially wrestle with senators trying to pull funding from public television. So in a world where everything seems to be either on the extreme right or the extreme left, or a compromised moderation in the middle at the expense of integrity. It's very rare to find such a Jesus-like character, such as Fred Rogers, who genuinely cares about the mark or the imprint that we adults leave on our children. Won't You Be My Neighbor is so warm and welcoming, just like Fred Rogers himself. So much so that it might make you reevaluate or re-examine some of your possibly stubborn stances on life. This is a quintessential documentary about a man who more than anything in the world just wants to be your neighbor. So that's it. That's my review of Won't You Be My Neighbor? Share your thoughts in the comment section below and share this video with all your friends on the YouTube verse. And as always, subscribe to my channel and ring the notification bell so you can get notified whenever I post new videos. This latest review is made possible thanks to your support on Patreon, so go to patreon.com/ramascreen, sign up there today, and become my patrons. Let's rock this.